Hello and welcome everyone to the Southern Utah Piano Pedagogy Conference video series. I'm here today with Brandon Lee, who's an accomplished pianist, and he's been teaching at Tuacan High School and at Dixie State University, and maybe foremost he also has a studio with his wife called Lee Family Music, leefamilymusic.com.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So feel free to check that out, and I'm sure we can put the link down here somewhere.
That'd be great.
I need to practice the
Yes,
pointing.
come peruse, come peruse. We're also on Instagram, Instagram also, and I think Facebook, but
So thanks so much for being with us today. We are curious about your experiences with teaching online. You did a presentation at our conference last year, and that proved to have a lot of foresight because less than a month later, we were all teaching online. But maybe tell us what your experiences have been this year, what you have learned, and what your recommendations are in terms of equipment, platforms, and so forth.
yes, indeed. Yes, thank you, Christian. Yeah, it was so yeah, not for I won't say foreboding, but just to have that happening when it did. So I'll use some snippets from that address or the presentation I gave last year. Some of the things that I noticed when everybody had to go and everything had to be all online was just the fact that sometimes we couldn't rely on connection, internet connection. So that was a really tricky thing. Obviously, the students with better Wi-Fi, with better speeds, they usually fared better as far as not dropping and not freezing up and not having an unstable connection. So we learned a lot. We learned a lot of explaining to them, okay, take your phone off Wi-Fi, maybe just use your data for this lesson because your Wi-Fi is dragging right now, or switching over to a different platform. Sometimes Zoom worked to be better than FaceTime, and other times students their Zoom didn't wasn't able to load on their computer, so we'd have to use FaceTime or Skype. Only teach one Skype person right now, and the majority, I'd say, probably use Zoom, and then I have a handful that use FaceTime. So that's one element. Another thing is making up lessons. It's been, I've had to navigate that because some students will, they know that they could have a lesson, so they'll they'll intentionally, oh, I have a game coming up this week. Can we do our lesson another time? And then they'll tell me, way in advance, and I got this happening. Can we just schedule it for Saturday morning? And so I got to be careful that way too to protect, as teachers, protect our time and when we can choose to do our makeups. And luckily I have my studio policy to fall back on. But I was finding at the very beginning I was trying to make everybody happy and make it all work, and that got to be kind of hectic and stressful. So something else I noticed is using the online teaching for my students. I'm used to teaching in person, was going a little bit over. So as you end the meeting and on FaceTime, let's say, and then realizing, okay, I have to get my other student on Zoom. Now I got to open Zoom. I got to send out that invitation. And that could take like 2 to 3 minutes. So I was trying to figure out how to do that on my computer at the same time. And as I'm ending one lesson, type in the Zoom, start that meeting invite while I'm still talking and teaching the last lesson. That got to be kind of, I had to learn how to multitask and do that, at the same time. So that was difficult. But here's my setup that I had at the very beginning of quarantine, and so it was kind of a simple mic laptop on a music stand with my mics, and so it was pretty basic. It was when our walls were still gray. So that was at the beginning, and through the summer we actually remodeled a little bit. I moved my piano over to the window, and we bought a cart, and that's what this is. So this is my setup today, and so I'm able to stick my interface, my power cables from my phone cord, my laptop charger, my headphones, which I do use, and I'll show those to you in a second. And my mics are still by the piano. So that is what I do as far as my end. Now my students' end. Okay, this is my one of my students' setups. They have their laptop on a chair with their microphone set up on the step ladder, and so I get to see them from their side angle, and I can they got their music, so I can kind of see their peripheral of their face and their hands. This is another angle This is one I shared at the conference last year. So it's not similar. She's on an upright. And I also use notes, and I can write down what we talk about during lesson and email it to her. Um, I also use I also use an iPad. I have an iPad Pro with with an Apple Pencil, and I can annotate in Fourscore, which is a neat app that's available for Apple users. So I can make marks in the digital copy of the music and do different colors for different like the articulation marks and sections and rests and dynamics, anything. And I can email that to her as a PDF, and so she can see my markings.
Do you use anything like for practice logs? Do you use any app for that, or do you require that in your studio?
You know what I like to do is I'll have them. I like to have them write it out, so they're actually physically utilizing their their own mechanics, and they kind of go to memory better, so they're actually more accountable for it. So I'll have them get a piece of paper or a notebook and write down, okay, I want you to practice this many times, or reference, go to your hand and practice number 28 at this tempo. And so I'll do that more specifically, but I'll to save time on my end as far as mailing things and giving them some ownership and accountability, I'll have them do it. I found that to be easiest for me, and for them it's it's more intentional on their part. And if they have parents with them, I love it when the parents are actually at the lessons, if they can be there. Although what I found is even though they're at home with the student, they don't have to drive their student out. Their child, they can just go in shopping, or they could just go into the backyard and do whatever. And so I still like, well, if you could be there and sit with the student, that would still be good. Appreciate that to help.
If I can backtrack for a second to the equipment, do you require your students to purchase certain equipment or to have certain equipment before you get into online teaching with them?
That's a good question. Normally, I'll suggest that they get some sort of USB microphone. It can be something. I've seen some $30 or $40 microphones work great that they can just plug into their laptop or their iPad or their tablet. And those usually work pretty well. If they can get like a Blue Yeti or something like that, and that's usually like in the $60 to $100 range, that's better. That's a better sound. Sometimes the iPhone, their mics actually are quite good, or they have an iPad. Those mics are pretty good. The best is the MacBook or like a laptop. But then again, so I'm having to deal with whatever they have with their financial means. They can accommodate. But I'll suggest for at least a USB microphone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it seems like fortunately the different platforms have started to adapt a little bit. And for example, Zoom, now you can enable original sound now on iPad.
Yes, I
So a lot of
know.
the apps have,
So
or the
nice.
platforms have definitely come our way, which is nice. At the beginning, that was a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, even on Zoom, like you can before it was just like background noise limit or enable background, low. Now there's like three or four different settings for low and maybe middle and high, and there's different, it tells you what the level of eliminating that background noise is. So I think it makes it a lot better for the acoustic sound of our instruments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions or any activities that you do in terms of like duet playing or ensemble experience or any of, some substitution for the in-person things or even studio recitals, for example?
Yes, yes. No, that's a big, yeah, that's been very, very difficult to navigate. Yeah, it's been such, I haven't been able to find a good way to do so. I have done some at the high school I worked at. So at Tokan High School, we did a few videos where I had the students record their parts and send it to me, and then I put them together. So they recorded it to me playing one part, and they recorded their part to my part, and then I kind of overlapped them all together. And so we did that at the end of last school year, and that worked out pretty well. They were able to. It was like a five piano deal. But other than that, yeah, I haven't been able to really figure out a good way to because you can't record them live together or on the FaceTime or Zoom because it just doesn't work.
How do you handle lesson fees?
Right. So even before I started doing virtual, I was pretty strict on making sure that they paid by the first or the week of the first of the month, and they just pay for the in advance. And so I would have them either mail a check to me or use Venmo, which a lot of people were starting to use Venmo more. I don't want to say religiously; they started to use it more frequently, and cash. Yeah, a lot of people would use cash. I still have a few students who, I mean, now that I'm kind of most of my students are back in person, with masks, and a few handful have stayed online, but so there's still a few who hold out and they use cash. But I'd say that by far, probably 95% of my students now Venmo. Venmo is what I found to be the easiest, simplest, quickest, no fees. They can just it goes directly from their bank account into their account, then Venmo account, and then into my Venmo into my bank the next day. So the whole transaction process takes a day. And so I've really loved Venmo, and you can keep track of it on the app and see who's paid and who hasn't yet. But I've found that works really well, and I can send a reminder. I can pay requests on Venmo and actually charge the parent the amount that they need to pay, and if they haven't paid, I can add on my late fee and say plus late fee, and this is what they need to just click their button, and it does it automatically. So and they would appreciate that. A lot of parents would appreciate before the deadline. In fact, send them a request, pay request, and they say, "Oh yes, that's right. I'm sorry." So it's easy on their part, easy on my part, and there's no you don't really have to say anything, or there's no awkwardness of asking, oh, it's been 15 days, tuition's due, and I got so I've loved Venmo. Venmo's been great.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for all your expertise on
Oh,
this topic.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Again, the website leefamilymusic.com. Make sure to check them out, and you can probably feel free to reach out to Brandon personally too if you have any questions about any of those videos. So thank you so much for your time.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you, Christian. It's been so fun.